It's time for Screen Junkies Movie Fights.
Oh, what in the world? It's Movie Fights Live, everybody. What's going on? Hashtag Movie Fights Live. Welcome to Movie Fights. It's the most glamorous movie fights of them all because it's dedicated to this weekend's Academy Awards.
Yay.
And I also want to shout out hashtag Owl Nation. What up? Here's Percival. Hoot hoot. Let's meet our combatants. First up, you know him from the Real Rejects channel. He has just rocketed up the movie fights food chain, and he's always gives us a great fight. And he brought on a little controversy around here recently because he left here not with the movie fights belt. He left here with something almost as precious. What was it, Greg?
It was the bathroom key. I have never gotten more tweets in my life about anything ever. And I made sure to bring it today.
Oh.
Yes. So
There
wait,
we
is
go.
let me ask Dan or Danielle or Billy, our producer, is the bathroom key on the line? Today's fight?
No, that's going home. That's going back to the
It's
office.
going back to the office.
Yeah.
We need it.
If that's the men's bathroom key, I'm not
Desperately
interested.
needed.
I'm not interested.
You've caused some great movie fights and several potty dances
Yeah, I've heard.
around
Sorry,
here.
stranger.
But it's always great to have you back, brother.
Thank you.
Next up, you can hear him on the Force Center podcast, and I'm very excited. He and Mr. Lon Harris, the professor himself, have a Game of Thrones centric podcast called I Love a Good Pun, Casterly Talk. Welcome back to the party, Ken NAPZOK.
I am so happy to be here, Hal, Clark, and Cucumber. This is going to be a great match today. I'm looking forward to it.
That's Greg, not Cucumber.
I do that.
Oh, come on.
I've made a huge mistake.
Ken, always great to have you, brother. And last but not least, from the Schmodown and DC Daily, welcome back to the party. Clark Wolfe.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you, Clark. Thanks for being here. We're ready to throw down about the most exciting night in entertainment, or one of them anyway, the Oscars. And deciding today's battles will be myself and the folks on the Dan Cam, Dan Murrell, Danielle Radford. Dan, good to see you.
to see you.
Hoot hoot, Dan.
We both wearing shark shirts, Hal.
Yes,
So
indeed.
it's
Yes,
Shark
indeed.
Nation today.
I'm cheating on Owl Nation just a little bit, but owls will always be first in my heart. But when you got a good Jaws shirt, you got to rep it.
You don't have to tell me, Hal.
Hell yeah. Oh, you got Jaws phone case, socks,
Everything.
unmentionables.
I'm wearing. Hang on, am I? I'm wearing shark socks today.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I like the coordination.
Thank you.
You got to coordinate.
Very nice. And we have our social chair, the social media ambassador, Danielle Radford, the great Danielle Radford. Danielle, would you please tell us what your capacity is over there and how you're going to be holding it down?
All right, so as y'all probably know, some of you may not, I am the voice of the people. So these dudes vote. In the case where it is a tie or there isn't a for sure winner, we come in and our vote actually matters. Now, there are lots of fun polls. There's stuff on Twitter. I encourage you to join in on the fun. But the only poll that matters in this case is the one on YouTube. If you're not sure how that works, click in the description below. Ask anyone in the chat. We will make sure that you do. But also, I will be trolling. Not trolling. Whoa, that's terrible. Not trolling.
I will be messing with you.
I meant
I'm coming after you.
I'm not trolling. It's fine. I know words. I write them. I'll also be on the Movie Fights Live hashtag on Twitter, making sure checking for any kind of. There's always great photoshops. Y'all always have fantastic alternative answers. So please get in there because if I like your comment, I might shout you out on the show.
Woo.
Awesome. And hoot hoot indeed. Danielle, but would you troll a couple of fools today?
Never.
All right, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Forever.
You know what? You're like the opposite of a troll. You bring like sunshine, good things. Like you say funny stuff. Trolls, yeah, that's bad juju. So, yeah, you're the opposite of that. So just a reminder how our little game works. The first person to 4 points wins. The top 2 performers after the first 3 rounds will move on to the speed round, and y'all can be down 3-0 going into the speed round, and someone can make a furious comeback and take the whole darn thing. So, what do you say without further ado, JTE, would you please drop that sick-ass package?
Prepare to die.
Ladies and gentlemen,
It's main event time.
finish him!
Wow. look at that.
Yeah, thank
good
you,
montage.
Thor. Okay, so the big prize coming out this weekend is Best Picture. Our first question is Best Picture related, but not involving the nominees. What picture that wasn't nominated? What movie that wasn't nominated should win Best Picture? Okay, so we're gonna hear about some of the snubs right now, and which one is the top of the snub heap. And we'll start with player number one, Greg.
Yay. I'm so not sick of talking about the Oscars already. It's funny how the ceremony hasn't even happened yet. But if there was a picture I would have to pick, and this movie was recommended by JTE himself, and I really did love this movie.
Shout out JT.
It's called Blind Spotting, and it is without a doubt one of the best yet most overlooked movies of last year. And not a lot of people saw it, so I'll give a quick breakdown of it. It tells the story of a black man in Oakland, California named Colin, played by Daveed Diggs, who is on his final 3 days of probation and his struggles to make sure everything goes okay, where he won't be sent back to jail or his probation doesn't get extended. And his main conflicts primarily deal with his white childhood best friend, played by named Miles, played by Rafael Casal, and traumatic repercussions after witnessing a black man gunned down by a police officer. And it's without a doubt one of the most nuanced films I saw of last year, with some of the best social commentary that deals with a variety of things: gentrification, cultural appropriation, racial identities, consequences of past mistakes, the harmful lines of loyalty with your friends and your roots, PTSD, and police brutality, of course. Yet, with all this gravitas, multiple layers, and social commentary, it still manages to not be a preachy film because of the life and energy infused in front of and behind the camera. It puts its characters' journeys first and foremost, so the commentary naturally unfolds through them because it's just a truly strongly, a character-driven piece. And the two main leads and the work behind the camera bring so much life to the performances. They feel like real people. So not only is it thought-provoking, emotionally powerful, educating, it's also surprisingly really funny, which makes it all around a wildly entertaining, engaging film.
All right, a strong opening salvo from Greg. I don't know if you could hear JTE applauding it from the booth.
Objection. Will not.
He's
Yeah, I was about to say,
jury will
rigged.
disregard.
Yes, we
the
will.
booth.
JTE's applause will not sway us. Ken NAPZOK.
Vote online, JT.
Wow, great description. I have not seen it. I know Janina Gavankar is in it, the voice of Iden Versio in Star Wars Battlefront, so I'm a big fan of her work. So you've given it a great pitch. It's going to be tough to tear down any one of these choices. Every year there's a lot of great snubs. You could make a case for a lot of these. I am making the case today, or trying to make the case, for Bo Burnham's 8th Grade. Now, this is a movie that is a quiet tone poem about real life grown up across many generations. I think this is of its time, but it's also something that resonated with me, taking me back to 8th grade, and it's about, I think, personal identity and finding yourself in any kind of world, but particularly world now. I like what Greg's saying about Blind Spotting and the fact that it's dealing with heavy things, but it doesn't become preachy. Well, that's, I think, what 8th grade does too. It's so quiet in the way it delivers things. At times, I thought I was watching a documentary, or at least felt like it. It harkened back to something like The Wrestler with me, having worked in pro wrestling. It's like I thought, oh, they've just put up a camera in real life. I thought that's what it did, and I believe a lot of the big issues that these big Oscar movies deal with, this one goes down to the core about personal identity, confidence, and trying to navigate tough waters that start very early, which can either lead or correct problems later on in life. So I'm going Bo Burnham's 8th Grade.
All right, Ken here talking about Bo Burnham's 8th Grade. Clark.
Okay, so I did a different approach. I really kind of thought a lot about the Oscars and the Oscar problem. That, it's something that we talk about as fans a lot. The Oscars don't necessarily, they're trying to become more inclusive and representative all the time, but the big blockbuster films that actually have something to say often still get overlooked. Now this year, of course, Black Panther was able to break through, which was fantastic. But so I decided to give a little love to A Quiet Place. So I think that A Quiet Place was the best movie that wasn't nominated for Best Picture of the year. I think that this movie, in addition to addressing... So what I like about it is that it is a mainstream film, absolutely. But it's a well-done, heartfelt, well-crafted mainstream film. When we're talking about Oscar snubs, a lot of people also are talking about Emily Blunt. The fact that she sort of was overlooked not only for her performance in Mary Poppins Returns, but for this movie as well. And I think that for me, her performance in this film, mostly silent, by the way, if anybody has forgotten, because it has been about a year since this came out, was absolutely remarkable. And, the last thing I would say is when I come on this show, I'm often advocating for genre film. I think that genre film doesn't necessarily get the love that it deserves. I know, Greg, you are a big genre fan as well. And I think that A Quiet Place is a wonderful example of genre done well, and when genre is done well, it can be heartfelt, it can be scary, it can be moving, it can be well crafted, and it can be well acted, and all of those things are what A Quiet Place did, and it resonated with audiences.
Wow, 3 pretty different films, all strong choices. Fight it out, please.
This is going to be very tough to fight. It's just going to be a nice, polite debate because I love Quiet Place, and I love what you're presenting. Again, I admit I haven't seen what you're saying, but that might be the problem. The Oscars is at the end of the day still a popularity contest, still a who can get the money behind the campaign, and this one's sadly overlooked. Do you?
I agree. This is a hard.
That was the best laugh cut off ever. I haven't even got to it, but you did a great job because your laugh. I was like, I didn't say anything funny. Yeah, go for it. No.
Well, I think the things that make A Quiet Place strong and Eighth Grade, I think Eighth Grade is known for 2 main things: Elsie Fisher's performance and Bo Burnham's scripting. Mm-hmm. And then I think for A Quiet Place, a lot of the technical parameters are what it's really known for. It's sound design, it's editing, and the lack of sound design. Basically, the technical structure side. I think what Blind Spotting does so remarkably well is it does both of those elements in this movie just as good. In Blind Spotting, like if you look at Eighth Grade, you're looking into a slice of life of someone's lifestyle, of what the horrors and anxieties of that person's life must be like. And Blind Spotting does that with our 2 main leads. And with A Quiet Place, when you think about the technical parameters, this film, not beyond its character stuff, the directing of it, its sound transitions, its use of color palette, the way that the director uses everything about that movie is so composed. So yes, while I love to lean in on character work with this movie, I also think behind the camera it's just as powerful. Whereas A Quiet Place, I feel like with A Quiet Place, if that had won Best Picture or even got nominated, I feel like there would have been a lot of backlash for that, because that's the kind of movie where I feel like, and I'll give you a chance to rebuttal it in a second. I feel like with A Quiet Place, that's the kind of movie that when you rewatch it or when you look back on it or watch it at home, I think when you watch it in the theaters, you let a lot of the logic go, but you have to really suspend your disbelief in order for that movie to work. And I think there's a lot of plot holes
I don't necessarily agree with that assessment, because I saw it in the theater with a packed house, and I also watched it at home with only one other person. And for me, all of the things that A Quiet Place was trying to hit home, the family struggle, and what parents will do and what one will do for the loved ones that they care about in dire situations, I think all of that works whether you're at home or you're in the theater. I also think, to echo what Ken said, I don't really want to take down either of these movies or any of these 3 movies, because I feel like they're all very valid. But what I feel like is important to argue is that A Quiet Place offers the entire package that once again resonated with audiences. I feel like when we are talking about bringing the Oscars forward and making them become something that, people at large enjoy, we want to see the movies that we just love represented. What A Quiet Place has, in addition to being a movie that we just love, it is technically proficient. And as far as performances go, I apologize, I don't have her name in front of me, but the young lady who plays the daughter, that is an example of a deaf actress playing a deaf character. That performance that she gives is absolutely beautiful and heartfelt, not to mention the performance, once again, that Emily Blunt gives. So I don't necessarily agree that A Quiet Place is should only be lauded for its technical achievements, because also those scares, those technical achievements, they don't work unless you're invested in the story, and this is at its core an emotional family drama.
Sorry.
Ken, I'd love to hear, a little
One
more
of my
about-
thoughts about the Quiet Place, which I really loved, is when you look at Best Picture winners, and we're saying these weren't nominated, but we think they could have won or should have won, right? So you're going to look down on a list, you're going to scan on Wikipedia, and the movie's going to be of its time, but not of its time. Quiet Place, I don't know if it will stand the test of time beyond just what we experienced this year with it, and any the lessons are great. They're universal as well, but I don't know if there are any new lessons that are relevant to this time and then going beyond. So I don't know, looking back, if Quiet Place will have as the impact as it did right now as a pop culture piece, which it was. It was one of the things you have to see it. I get scared real easily at movies. I think you know this about me, Clark. I can't even listen to any podcast you're on talking about horror. I was forced to watch that movie, and I came out the other side. I learned a lot, but I felt I got more from what in 8th grade, that here I am, an old guy with gray in my beard, almost reliving the trauma of being in that year, but also finding, just the way they casually, but in a sadly beautiful, casual way of going through active shooter training, like it's just part of their lives, and just seeing how you have to establish yourself now. And I think that stands the test of time when you look back for the time and the era. I think your movie probably has that too, Greg, right? From what you're describing, you're going to look back and say, all right, that has some relevance now and forever, where Quiet Place, I don't know if it'll stand up to that test of time.
Yeah, I feel like with A Quiet Place, I think the performance is elevated, but I think the writing of the characters is rather bland in that movie. I don't even know those characters' names.
But I don't think you're supposed to. I think the idea is that they could literally be anybody.
They're like avatars in a way for you to live through, but they're not really. I don't really feel like they're that nuanced of characters.
Okay,
I feel like Emily
that's
Blunt
your
really
opinion.
raises it.
I don't agree with that.
All right, let's welcome to Movie Fights, people.
I feel like I've already explained why I feel. I feel like
she just that's like your opinion, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's shift gears, everybody, and some great arguments all around. Let's move to our final thoughts, and we'll start with player number 1, Greg Alba.
I think that a film that should win Best Picture should be a film that nails it all, if not most of it. Here you have an amazing, truly lived-in performance from its lead and its supporting cast, which brings a lot of weight and humor equating to performances of just life. The writing and directing of this film is unbelievably sharp, clever, energetic, realistic, and uniquely told to where you don't know how the film will ultimately unfold, but by the time it ends, it takes your breath away. The use of colors, symmetry, editing, all clearly perfectly composed and thought out from beginning to end. The sound design with its transitions. And it manages to be a film with a lot of humor and a lot of weight, even in its more surreal elements, its nightmarish sequences, and its use of rap used in the movie for its main character to be able to express what he normally can't in regular conversation. And like I said in my opening, the commentary on gentrification, racial identities, all different multiple themes of PTSD and police brutality, and it's not preachy because the film puts its characters first. And there are scenes in this movie of confrontation that are more powerful and more intense and I saw all year that I find more scary. I think there are scenes in 8th grade and this movie that are more intense and scary than anything in A Quiet Place. The confrontation at the very end of this movie with the police officer, the scene where a child's holding a gun, and the subplots with the girlfriends are also very resonant for the characters. I think, to wrap it up, I'd say the main strengths of 8th grade and A Quiet Place, I believe, are demonstrated so much in Blind Spotting as well. With A Quiet Place, things that it's primarily credited for, it's like, yes, some people really love Emily Blunt's acting and such, but I think the things it's mainly acknowledged for are the sharp direction, horror, use of sound design and editing. Blind Spotting expertly nails that. 8th grade's credit for stepping into the life of a character and exploring the horrors and anxieties of what it must be like to be that person. This movie also nails that. So while I think your guys' movies have strong elements, I don't think it's the whole package. The strengths of what their films are recognized for, this film also does exceedingly well and does more of. Every single element in front of and behind the camera of Blind Spotting shines. It's a more important film. It's a more relevant film. Has a lot more nuance. Every single scene is multi-layered, and the entertainment value is also there.
Thanks, Greg.
In passion speech, and I believe and respect every word you've said. It might be on my list to see, but I'm putting a Best Picture winner in a time capsule. And that's what's going on in 8th grade. We got time capsules, kids. And when you pull this movie out, you're going to go to that pool party scene, watching the gift be unwrapped, and you're going to have every bit of horror you spent growing up of trying to find your place in the world, which spills out into all these other areas covered in this movie and that movie. You're going to see this one, and it's going to absolutely resonate no matter who you are, where you are, and when you are watching it. It is a Best Picture winner in my mind.
Thank you, Ken. Clark.
All right, so I want to start by saying, at the end of the day, I feel like genre films are very hard to do well. If they were easy to do well, a lot more of them would be better, but they're not. And so I think the fact that A Quiet Place resonated with audiences really says something. Now, I bring that up because when we're thinking about the best picture of the year, the Academy has long had a problem with recognizing films that regular audiences enjoy. And what A Quiet Place, I think, represents for 2018 is the fact that you can recognize a technically well-done film that has heart, that has emotion, that succeeds in what it sets out to do, which is scare you and make you cry. It has beautiful performances in it, especially led by Emily Blunt. And you were talking earlier, Greg, about the entire package. I feel like that is the entire package. We have 10 Best Picture nominees for a reason. The idea behind that was to include more movies that resonate with a wider group. And I think A Quiet Place should not only have been nominated as one of those 10, but it should be recognized as the Best Picture of the year.
Thank you, Clark Wolfe.
Great.
Ding, ding. There we have it.
Good round, guys. Good round.
Yeah.
Good fight.
Thoughtful, good round. It makes me consider all those films. Dan Murrell, what's going on in the fact zone?
Highly opinion-based fight, which means there's not much to check factually. Millicent Simmons is the actor who played the daughter in A Quiet Place. She is hearing impaired in real life, but played that role in the film. Of the three films mentioned here today, only one of them received any Oscar attention whatsoever. A Quiet Place received one Oscar nomination for sound editing, but neither Eighth Grade nor Blind Spotting received any Oscar attention. However, Eighth Grade did win just recently. It was a surprise winner at the Writers Guild for its screenplay, among some other awards. And that's it. Factually, that's all I got.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. Going into this, I definitely had my opinions on these films, and I threw them out the window and listened to these arguments. And so I'm going against some of my personal opinions because of what you have waged here. Clark, you laid out just a great argument as to why some more popular genre films should be included, and A Quiet Place would be at the top of the list for me. And I think you hit some of the important reasons why this film was kind of overlooked, and it deserves a lot of love for standing out last year. Ken, Eighth Grade is a film that I love, so you're really speaking to me. But at the end of the day, I think Greg just laid out the most comprehensive argument as to why Blind Spotting resonated. Blonde Spotting. Hey guys, want to go do some blonde spotting? That doesn't sound creepy. Okay, but he laid out the most interesting argument to me as to why Blind Spotting resonated in technical, performance, creative, and behind the scenes, and the whole package there. That's what I heard from Greg, so that's where my vote goes. Dan Murrell.
I'm having a tough time with this. I feel like Ken got kind of caught in the crossfire between Clark and Greg, and so I have to discount Ken just for that reason. And it came down to those two, and it's very close, and it comes down to they both made great cases for why their movies were good movies.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the things that were thrown to both of them, but particularly at A Quiet Place, were a bit subjective. It was hard because the two good fighters both making a passionate case. What was the difference maker for me was Greg painted a great picture about why Blind Spotting is a great movie, but I feel like Clark addressed more why it should be at the Oscars, why it should be nominated for Best Picture and win at the Oscars. And it wasn't what's the best movie, it's what's the movie that should be nominated and win Best Picture at the Oscars. And I felt like, Greg really sold Blind Spotting, the movie, but I think Clark sold me on the question more as to this is why it's important that it be included for Best Picture specifically, and isn't just a great movie.
Gotcha.
It may seem a ticky-tack, but when you have a lot of good arguments, that's how you have to do it. So my vote would be for Clark, based on playing the Oscar angle and playing to the question a little more closely.
I hear where you're coming from. So it's one for Clark and it's one for Greg. Clark, Greg, again, this is... we are not...
Clark, Greg, fabulous actor, by the way.
Yes.
Agent Coulson.
Yes.
Quiet Place, take the lead.
So we're going to Danielle to let us to help us out here.
All right, so this is, I just refreshed, and at 36%, this is close, A Quiet Place. At 35%, Blind Spotting. And at 28%, Eighth Grade.
A real barn burner. Clark Gray. Clark Wolfe
Okay.
takes the point.
There's some other great things people were saying. Into the Spider-Verse, Can You Ever Forgive Me? Sorry to Bother You. If Beale Street Could Talk, Bad Times, which I've loved all of these movies. Interesting.
So close. Yeah.
So close.
Dang.
And then I really enjoyed this comment from Road Raider 3. I'm going to hop back up on my soapbox for Annihilation. It's a truly beautiful, thought-provoking, complex sci-fi movie with interesting themes, great performances, and I wish more people saw it or had the chance in theaters. I agree. I thought Annihilation was great. Go see it if you can.
That was my B
Yikes.
choice.
Yeah.
Girl.
Right on. Clark.
I went to the. I should not have looked at the chat. I'm sorry. Sorry, I have an opinion. Jeez. Woo! I'm the villain of this show so far. Sorry, guys. Dangerous Dan. What happened? I called him like I see him. I don't know. You voted for it too. What are you looking at? Jeez.
Oh man, I kind of want to see what happens.
You know what? Comment sections, chats, they can be dangerous places to wade into. And so can the movie fights table. Clark emerges victorious on that point. And we move to question number 2. Again, we're talking about the most glamorous night in Hollywood. Question number 2. Of all the Best Picture winners, we're talking of all time since, like, man, we're going back to, like, what, like 1980s? No, I'm kidding, like the 1920s. What's the best movie to ever win Best Picture? Wow.
Whoop.
Best movie to ever win Best Picture. Dan, what year was the first Academy Awards?
Oh boy.
Like 29, 30?
And I believe 1920. I want to say like 1920, 1921, something like that. Let me look
Okay,
it up.
I would have said 29.
I know
First
Wings
Academy
is the
Awards.
first Best
Yes,
Picture winner.
Wings.
That's just trivia, though.
First
I don't
Academy
know.
Awards were in 1920. Oh, held in 1929. Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Wings.
Just to give you guys a little bit of context, we're going all the way back in the way back machine to 1929. They could choose any picture between last year and 1929. And we're going to start with player number 2, our good friend Ken NAPZOK.
Hey, my answer is sponsored by the book The Female Gaze by
Woo!
Alicia Malone, a guide to essential movies made by women.
Oh, heck
because
yeah.
Alicia Malone led me to this answer. She introduced me to this movie that I had not watched, and quite frankly, there's a lot of movies I haven't watched, but she made sure I watched this one, and it is my choice. It Happened One Night, the 1934 winner for Best Picture. Claudette Colbert as Ellie, Clark Gable as Peter, directed by Frank Capra. Being first is not always best. I don't think that's always the answer, but this is a case where I think this movie really created a template for romantic comedies, screwball comedies, and movies that, quote, stand the test of time. There's a lot of bigger, more epic choices out there. I get that, but it's kind of maybe my style to go small, to go characters, to go relationships, and a movie that you can watch now, or as I did in 2015, and feel like it was as modern as a movie in 1934 can be. It Happened One Night by Frank Capra.
All right, the great Frank Capra. It Happened One Night. Clark.
Yes, all right. I have chosen Billy Wilder's The Apartment. So this is, I really, like, this is interesting because this fight is something that I care very passionately about, but I also know that I am right. And so I'm just like, if you guys don't agree, that's your problem. The Apartment is, I love this film. I love it for many reasons. One of the things that I think makes it the best picture to ever win Best Picture, or best film to ever win Best Picture, is that it still is contemporary today. This is a movie that is decades and decades old, and yes, it is black and white, and yes, it has Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine in it, but it is a story about human beings. It is a story about people. It is still funny to this day. When you're doing a comedy, especially a comedy that is decades old, if those jokes still land, you have done something right. Not only do the jokes in The Apartment still land, the heartbreak in The Apartment still lands. The performances from Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine are absolutely outstanding. Shirley MacLaine specifically as Fran Kubelik Kubrick. And Billy Wilder, you know, he comes with this package, meaning Billy Wilder, I think, is one of the greatest film directors to ever live. I think he can make you laugh while making you cry and breaking your heart, but making you feel hopeful. That's everything wrapped up in The Apartment. It's a truly beautiful film, but it's also not one of those like film school films where it's like, you have to watch this because it's like, no, this is actually a great movie. I highly recommend to anyone watching it to this day. So that's why The Apartment, I think, is the best movie to ever win Best Picture.
Wow, such heavy hitters coming to like The Apartment with Jack Lemmon, directed by Billy Wilder, Shirley MacLaine, Happened One Night, Capra, Clark Gable, Claudette Colbert. All right, let's add to the party, Greg. What do you got?
Mine's a romantic comedy too, called The Godfather. The 2015 hit right here. If you haven't happened to have seen The Godfather, I'm just going to read you the IMDb description if you just happen to have seen this movie. The aging patriarch of an organized crime... Yes, Glenn. It's about the aging patriarch of an organized crime dynasty who transfers control of his clandestine empire to his reluctant son. When I was thinking about this question, I was trying to think of the movie that's had the most cultural impact and the biggest impact and influence on filmmakers and the film medium as a whole. And without a doubt, The Godfather is the one that has just transcended movies over the decades. I think out of all of these picks especially, it is not just the most iconic, but easily the most influential film of them all. And it's also very, very timeless. It explores a wide variety of themes of family, loyalty, ethnic identity, culture, legacy, good versus evil. The Eagles are in the sky! Good versus evil, struggles with what it means to be a man, loneliness, greed, all told through what is probably the best ensemble ever put together on the big screen. And I feel like I know on Movie Fights we argue a lot of subjective point of views, but The Godfather is one of the movies that is objectively regarded as one of the absolute greatest, most influential movies ever made, which I like. Just some quick credits and I'll wrap it up. It was selected for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry of the Library of Congress, being deemed cultural, historically, and aesthetically significant. Second greatest film, ranked by AFI in American cinema, only behind Citizen Kane. Number one at Metacritic's Top 100 list, ranked 7th on Rotten Tomatoes all-time best list, number 2 on IMDb. Stanley Kubrick himself thought it was the best film ever made. So for many of its iconic scenes, ridiculous amount of quotable lines, powerhouse performances, beautifully shot scenes from beginning to end, its iconic score, epic, sprawling, violent tale that manages to remain engagingly intimate, emotional in a wide variety of ways throughout. For me, it was just a no-brainer as The Godfather.
All right, fight it out so we can solve this easy question.
Yeah, this is no problem. This is easy.
Very, very
I'm going to tell you
easy.
why The Apartment and It Happened One Night are bad movies.
You know, okay, so I'll start it off.
Okay.
With The Godfather.
Yes.
I think that it's easy for us to wrap the entire Godfather saga up into The Godfather. I think a lot of people, when they talk about the impact and standing the test of time, yes, of course, the first film is mentioned, all those accolades are true, but I think the true cultural impact really wraps up The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2. And I think that's where it gets a little sticky with saying, with lauding The Godfather as the best, because I think a lot of people think of the combination when they think of The Godfather. And so I don't know if The Godfather on its own would be able to stand as the best movie to win Best Picture.
That's more of a theory that sounds very subjective because, I mean, I'm just going off the facts here with what all the accolades it's received over time. And for me personally, I don't, because I know you're saying that you do, but for me, I don't lump both Godfather 1 and 2 together. While I think Godfather 2 is an amazing film, it was actually my option B for this one. I don't really associate them. I can really look at them as individual pieces together. And it seems like with the thing about It Happened One Night, which I actually saw just last year, and it was a really fun movie, and The Apartment as well. I feel like when this comes to this question, I'm thinking of every single element that involves making a film, beyond its impact and its iconicness. I'm thinking about all the design aesthetic to it as well. And for me, when I look back at It Happened One Night or The Apartment, which are both really great films, the main thing I think when you show a person that today, if it's the first time they're watching it, they're primarily going to take away two things: the performances and the writing. Where I think with The Godfather, you take away everything: directing, the epic storyline, performances, writing, the production design, the music, every single thing about that picture and how it's influenced. We wouldn't have works like Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas or The Sopranos if it wasn't for The Godfather.
I think, okay, I'm also going to
Ken's caught in the
argue.
crossfire.
Sorry.
No. Let me get caught in the crossfire. Don't be nice, Clark. But I'll tell you what. I think a lot of my fans know. I have like 4 of them. I'm one of those people. I was in film school. Sat down to watch Godfather. Went like this. 4 minutes, I'm out. I could go watch Goodfellas. I can go watch Casino. Never seen it to this day. It's like The Wall by Pink Floyd. Yep, it's part of history, but it's wallpaper I pass by, going to find something that connects more with me on a personal level and that has great influences. If you watch it happen one night, you're going to go through and go, oh, that's... I love When Harry Met Sally. That's from this. That's from that. In fact, you're going to watch even The Apartment and go, Billy Wilder must have watched it happen one night. You're going to find the same kind of vibe. Now, again, how am I going to tear down that movie? Because the end gets me emotionally. But I'm talking about putting it down on paper as the best, trying to take my personal stuff out there. I remember watching it happen one night and just go, I get it. This is the template for so many things that came before it. And I'm still going to watch something now and tie it back to that, where I think you could say Godfather 2 did surpass Godfather in some. That's obviously not my opinion. I don't have that opinion. Or Goodfellas or JT. He likes Bringing Out the Dead. It's a weird Scorsese choice, but I think yours is absolutely great. What Happened One Night's got awards: 12 BAFTAs, 7 Nick Jr. Teen Choice Awards. It was in the 1934 Baseball Hall of Fame with Ty Cobb and Babe Ruth. I don't know the award. It doesn't matter to me because it's just noise.
We're getting into a conversation too, and it's so hard to do in this environment. But I love this debate because what we're talking about is what we value in film. And I think, Greg, the thing with The Godfather is that that's a taste issue. You even said it in your argument, what it means to be a man. And for me, as a cinephile, as somebody who went to film school,
That was one of many things I said.
Okay, but I'm choosing to talk about that because I think it kind of affects and informs the rest of your argument. You're talking about taste. For you...
Doesn't that go right for both of you, though, too?
No.
Likewise?
No, it doesn't, because I would argue that what your movie does is it represents a certain type of man, a certain type of figure, a certain type of story. Something like The Apartment, I would argue, is universal. It's a man, it's a woman, it's a love story, it's trying to get ahead in your career, it's deception, it's learning that it's dealing with heartache, it's dealing with suicide, it's dealing with so many life things that I feel like all people in general could relate to. When I watch The Godfather, I don't relate to it. And I'm going to be completely honest because, this is a debate show. I think The Godfather is one of the greatest movies of all time, and I do think it is influential. But I don't think it is... the gold standard that that a lot of people in our community hold it up to be.
I feel like there's so many themes and so many different. It's like an emotional roller coaster, The Godfather, though. There's so many elements in that movie, though. I mean, there is that romantic element of the romance he forms in Italy and the loss that he has, and the strained relationship he has with Diane Keaton in that movie, Al Pacino's. And then there is the father and son dynamic, and then there's also the brother and sister relationship with Talia Shire. The whole movie, it's an interesting movie because it's a criminal organization movie, but it's also a lot about family. It was the first movie. There was like a whole censorship board thing that was an issue where if you had villains as the main characters, they had to be portrayed as bad. And it was the first movie to take villain characters and portray them with a lot of heart and humanity and in a relatable way. And I don't think... If it was not relatable, if there was nothing, that's what made it so compelling, was that even though they're villainous characters, we latch onto them, not just because they're interesting, but because it's about family at the end of the day. To quote Vin Diesel and that whole franchise, it's about family.
I don't know if comparing it to Fast and Furious is going to help.
Greg likes to eat at Olive Garden, apparently, where it's also about family there, too. Is this my final...
really trying to harp on The Godfather.
Is this final thoughts that you...
Let's go ahead and shift gears. Ken, the floor is yours.
Look, we keep saying this, but this is a tough one because
it is a tough one.
Your influences are absolutely 100% right. I also think, though, another person in this seat or another person in your seat could have selected Lawrence of Arabia, could have selected Ben-Hur, could have selected Shakespeare in Love. Kidding. About some big, giant, epic movie that everyone studies and brings out books and says, this is what you need to like. I'm looking at, if I'm being honest, The Apartment is actually my favorite of these movies, but I think It Happened One Night is a better movie than that when you're talking about the best of all time. And it's hard to compare eras. That's true in a lot of things. But I do think, going back to my original argument, a lot of things tie back to this one, which is I think it is the best and stands the test of time.
Thank you, Ken NAPZOK. Clark, Wolf.
So I think that when it comes to movies like The Godfather, what we're talking about is impact and influence, and that's very important. But I don't necessarily think that equals best. To me, the question is, what's the best movie to ever win Best Picture? So to me, what The Apartment has that these other two don't is it has relatability for anyone in the audience. Because I watched The Godfather and I do not relate to Kate, and oh, do I not relate to Talia Shire. So that's a whole other debate. But I think you can watch Fran Kubelik, I think you can watch Baxter, and you can say, yep, I have been in one of those positions. In addition to that, we're talking about quality, the writing, the direction, the performances, the atmosphere that is created in Billy Wilder's The Apartment is undeniable. And finally, I think the question is, does it stand the test of time? And when you are doing romance and when you are doing comedy, it is so hard to have a movie that stands the test of time, that is still funny, that still resonates. And I would argue that with The Apartment, the only thing that doesn't stand the test of time is his New York City apartment going for like $300 a month. Everything else is something that you can look at and you go, yeah, that's me, and you can laugh out loud. So for me, I absolutely believe that The Apartment is the best movie to ever win Best Picture.
Thank you, Clark. Greg.
I feel like, okay, we're in a very subjective round here. And
Most of them are.
When it comes to relatability, when I watched It Happen One Night and The Apartment, I didn't go there and go, I don't relate with these characters. I don't identify with these guys. And the relatability is just as subjective as a lot of the things that we're talking about today. So I'm thinking about you got to think about the best picture ever and its influence and impact it has made over 45 years later, and it's still influencing films today. If you haven't seen if you haven't seen The Godfather, you will have seen it referenced in so many movies, whether it's a comedy movie or even a drama or a show even. And the amount of iconic quotes in that film. There's more quotes and scenes in those movies that are way more memorable and way more famous in the mainstream than any of your movies. I can't recall a specific scene from your guys' stuff. Maybe It Happened One Night with the lifting up the dress part, but that's about it. But with the iconic quotes of I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse, leave the gun, take the cannoli, sleep with the fishes, and then all the scenes in there that are so memorable. Listening to the opening scene with Marlon Brando listening to a man's plea for help, the entire wedding, the horse's head in the bed, the restaurant scene with Pacino, Sonny at the toll booth, the orange slices in Brando's mouth, the iconic image of Diane Keaton watching the door close on Pacino. And this film hops around with criminal characters, yet it weirdly feels a lot about family. It has a surprising amount of heart and wide variety of emotions you feel throughout the journey. There's suspense, intensity, constant intrigue, romance, heartbreak, loss, shock, fear. You watch characters' true emotions become unraveled over the course of this film, from guilt and remorse. These are all emotions we can relate to. And you're also watching a man try to separate himself from his family, but then gets sucked back and this is in the first movie, gets sucked back into the lifestyle of his family that is toxic for him. A lot of us can relate to that. And I think It Happened One Night and The Apartment are great films that are not as timeless, nowhere near as influential or as iconic, and they feel like a strong product of its time. You've had works that have come out that are similar, but I think some works later are even better or improved upon. When you watch those movies today, you probably only take away the acting and the script. They're fine movies, but only a couple elements to this day really shine. With The Godfather, last thing I'll say, direction, scope, music, cinematography, production design, writing, performances, the amount of emotions you experience along the way, it's the entire package. And that's why it's as iconic as it is. It still holds up to this day, 45 years later. It has a continuing, long-lasting effect on culture and cinema. It's practically perfect.
Ring-a-ding-ding, that is the end of round 2. Dan Murrell, please take us to the fact zone and then give us your thoughts on this battle.
Oh, I get to go first. Great. Actually, I'm glad. Someone else can break the tie. Okay, if there is one. All of these films nominated by the Academy Awards, obviously they all won Best Picture, or else they wouldn't have been eligible for this round. It happened one night, won 5 Oscars, and won what's referred to as the Big Five, which only a few movies have done. Picture, director, actor, actress, and screenplay. The Apartment also won 5 Oscars: picture, director, screenplay, art direction, and editing. No acting Oscars for that film, which I am a big fan of, and I think that's a travesty.
The Apartment?
Yeah.
It didn't win not for Jack Lemmon or Shirley? Whoa, wow, that's crazy.
Or Fred McMurray.
Yeah, Fred
Wow,
McMurray.
that's
The
shocking.
Godfather did not win as many Oscars as I think a lot of people might have thought because it was a kind of a stacked year that year.
Cabaret.
It did not win Best Director. A lot of people think Coppola won Best Director for The Godfather. He did not. It won 3 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Actor, and Best Adapted Screenplay.
I don't know if you still have it at your fingertips. Did you? I'm just curious. Who won Best Director
Wasn't
that
it
year?
Fosse?
I believe it was Bob Fosse
Yeah,
won.
because that was Cabaret that year.
Wow.
So basically, it was like The Godfather and Cabaret
Yeah.
split all of the big ones.
Crazy.
Because Joel
Whoa.
Grey beat Pacino for Best Supporting, whereas because it was Brando that won Best Actor.
But Pacino
Right.
protested the awards, though, because he thought he should have been lead.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, Bob Fosse won.
Yeah. And,
right.
and
So just a whole bunch of facts for you guys.
so good. Go watch Cabaret. It's awesome.
It is. It's a very good movie.
Yeah. Dan, what do you think?
Oh boy, the subjective ones are tough. Again, Ken, I'm sorry you got caught in the middle.
That's fair.
I love to see it. You're a
fair,
delight
Dave.
to have around,
Yeah.
but
Next round, it'll just be Ken talking.
You guys have great candy in the snack room.
but really, it actually felt sort of like everyone against Greg in a large part because of The Godfather and what it means. Which I think could be a positive or could be a negative. Ultimately, I think that Greg was able to fight himself out of being boxed in on several things. I thought that Clark's relatability argument was a very strong argument. I mean, that was really swaying me. But I thought that Greg had a great counter to that, and he got more thrown at him against his choice than any other competitor. But at the same time, I thought that he was able to fight back and then go further than anyone else in this round. So my vote would go to Greg.
You know what, Dan? I gotta say, I'm just about in lockstep with you here because I thought Clarke made a brilliant argument trying to take down the behemoth that is The Godfather because there's so much baggage and stuff that goes with The Godfather. Ken and Clarke dinging you on, does it get lumped in with Godfather 2? And then I thought your relatability argument was brilliant. And it is such a masculinity-centric thing to see yourself navigating that Godfather world and watching that film and relating to those characters. So that was a wonderful argument, Clarke. But at the end of the day, I thought Greg addressed it. Oh, there's more than that. Like I had to be reminded that there's more than just that relatability. That's how good your fight was, Clarke. And I think Greg reminded us why this film is just on the Mount Rushmore of movies. So I'm going Greg as well. Godfather and Greg take the point. Danielle, where are we at as far as the polls?
Oh, gee,
right.
I can't wait to hear these
had to be
numbers.
All right, are you ready?
93%.
63%. We have The Godfather. The Apartment at 20%, and It Happened One Night at 15%.
I'll take it.
Ken made it. I don't think you should overlook just how important the point that Ken made, though, as far as it giving birth to so many of the tropes.
My
that
girlfriend
we-
introduced me to that movie,
Yeah.
and it was because of that fact.
And so some other things that were said, a lot of Return of the Kings, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Godfather 2 got a lot of love, Fargo, Rocky, and...
Fargo.
Fargo didn't win.
I know, but that's what they keep saying.
Fargo didn't win, but I hate to break it to you.
Well,
the most
bad
patient
news.
one.
Dare you, Dan? Ruin our fun.
Also, the chat is messing with me today, and they just really need me to say crash, and they're pretending like they mean it. They don't mean it. And now they're finding
I
ways
like
to
that
put
movie.
crash into every single movie that's
no.
ever been made.
Crash into
number
every
one.
single
movie.
Crash
I don't
Her.
care.
If you're not in the chat, get in the chat. They're having a great time trolling me.
A lot of
'cause I
fun crash
said a thing.
talk
Crashed.
in the chat. And was it JTE who
Rocky?
tweeted Rocky?
Yes, it was JT.
Thank you.
Probably.
All right, so we are locked up at 1-1. One for Clark, one for Greg, and we are going into question number 3.
Which is a surprise
I've never done.
to us.
I've never done one
yeah.
of
Oh,
these.
yeah. Guess what? It's a blind fight. Look out.
Whoa!
What?
OMG. OMG. There are hats. There are multiple hats with multiple pieces of paper in
You
them.
haven't done them either?
Okay. Oh, I only have...
Ken's the other one who's done one of
these are
these.
the wrong hats.
Oh no.
Come on, Billy Business, get the right hats
Look
here,
at all
Billy
these
Business.
hats. These are the wrong ones. Okay, here we go.
Oh boy.
All right. So, all right. This question was inspired by the casting of Chris Hemsworth as Hulk Hogan.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So, I'm going to ask each of you to pick one piece of paper out of each hat. Okay, pick one out of each.
One out of each. One.
One, reach in.
One.
Okay, reach in, reach in.
Staring you down, Hal. Staring you down.
All right, there you have it. So, you have, you know what, I have I'm going to need Billy to come over here and help me out with this iPad in a second, but I remember this question. You each chose an actor or actress and a biographical subject. So you are going to pitch us the biopic starring this actor, actress, etc. And it's question number 3.
I think I got 2 actors.
I got 2 performers.
I got 2
Yeah,
performers.
Oh.
it's right.
Yes,
Okay.
it's,
Whatever it
it's
is,
right. It's right. Whatever it is, it's right.
That's
Okay.
why the hats were labeled, Hal. So one had the actor, one had the person.
Oh,
Well, I have.
Oh,
I think I got
get it. I get
It's a
it.
biopic
of
starring
that person.
I think that is
Okay,
pretty
okay, okay.
clear.
yes.
Hal, I'm good to go.
I got it.
Are
I
you
was
good to go?
confused. Yes,
Great.
I got it.
Ooh, all right,
I think I know.
situation averted. All right, let's go around the table and hear who you have, and you can give us as much or as little info about your particular movie as you care to.
So, would you like to hear the pitch now, or would you like to hear the players?
If you're ready, let her rip,
Oh,
Clark.
Of course I'm ready. Are you kidding?
Hell yeah.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Adam Driver is the voice of his generation. He is considered by many to be one of the best young actors working today. I think he has a long road ahead of him. He was great in Girls, and he's great in Black Klansman, and of course he's got the high-profile Star Wars movies. Who doesn't love an Adam Driver? So who better to play the iconic restaurateur, chef de jour, the man who represents most of America when it comes to our eating habits, Guy Fieri. I mean, just think. Adam Driver is a chameleon. He's one of the most intense actors. He shapeshifts. He disappears into his roles, and I think that there is nobody better to portray the man, the myth, and the Times Square legend, Guy Fieri.
Great opening salvo, and I will say to everyone, also please think about who you'd want to direct your film and who might take some plum supporting roles. Greg, what do you got?
We lost a man recently who has played such an influence in our culture. An iconic man who founded Marvel Comics named Stan Lee. And we all want a biopic of him. So who better to portray him than Michael B. Jordan?
There is nothing the man can't do.
There's nothing.
I will tell you.
Yes. Thank you, Clark.
You're
for
welcome.
that.
Helping me with that one.
I appreciate that. Michael B. Jordan is always being told that he should play all kinds of roles, even asked to play Superman lately. And, you know, we're always saying how we need more diversity in the comic book character roles. What better way to really implement the diversity than to go to the actual origin, the source of it all, than having Michael B. Jordan span the entire lifespan of Stan Lee in the course of this biopic.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Look forward
Directed
to
by
hearing.
Ryan Coogler.
Okay.
Because
Obviously.
it's
Yeah.
Michael B. Jordan, and
That's
he
a-
won't work with anyone else.
Yep, that's a great combo. Thank you, Greg. Ken NAPZOK, what are you working with?
You know, they say the world is sick of little love songs, but I think if you look around you, you'll see it isn't so. In the late 1960s, Paul McCartney, then of the Beatles, met a young Linda Eastman at an event promoting Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and thus began a love affair that lasted for ages until her tragic passing of cancer. So that is why Duncan Jones will be directing Michelle Williams in the Paul McCartney-related biopic with
come
Tilda
on.
Swinton as Paul McCartney, called The Wind Beneath His Wings.
Come on.
Wait, Michelle Williams is directing the
No,
Tilda.
she's starring as Linda
Linda.
McCartney,
Oh, Linda
in the
McCartney.
Paul McCartney biopic,
It's
The
Tilda
Wind
Swinton.
Beneath His Wings.
That's-
Tilda Swinton will be Paul McCartney,
Yep.
directed by Duncan Jones, son of David Bowie.
All right, fight it out,
All
please.
Look, I would love to go to Flavortown. I think Guy Fieri is a absolutely underrated, big-hearted person who goes around helping the world. But I love Adam Driver. He's my favorite actor in the new Star Wars sequel era. I think he brings so much, but I think he's going to bring too much. I think we need someone who's going to just explode on the screen with fun and joy. I think a Channing Tatum would have been a great choice, but you were stuck with Adam Driver, and I think we're not going to Flavortown. I think we're going to Moodtown with your film here.
Well, little did you know that Michael Bay is going to be directing Flavortown, starring. I mean, have you seen Pain and Gain? This is his new Pain and Gain. Think about it: the sex, the drugs, the fried foods, all on display. Adam Driver is the only person to do this, and it's going to co-star Kristen Wiig as a cheeseburger. It's going to co-star Paul Giamatti as his beard. It's going to be epic, and nobody. No,
Paul
So Paul
Giamatti has his
Giamatti
beard.
as the beard. No,
is
he's
strapped
the beard.
onto
Yeah.
the face
Yes.
of Adam Driver.
Listen, if anyone can make this work, it's Michael Bay. Come on. I mean, let's
I think
Yeah,
Michael Bay
yeah.
would make that just god awful. He'd make that
Yeah.
Pain and Gain is the good version compared to all the bad movies he's done.
Yeah, but when he shows up for a thoughtful character piece, which how could this not be?
Look, guys, Ryan Coogler
He
and Michael
shows
B.
up.
Jordan haven't made one bad movie together.
Beautiful film team.
True,
That you
very
put them
true.
together, you're guaranteed a moving picture that is also wildly it's not
High bar,
small.
high
It's
bar.
actually
High bar there.
an emotionally moving picture that's wildly engaging. And I think, with the Stan Lee life that we've all known of how he struggled to, I need to not look at Danielle Radford as he's just laughing. But I think with the Stan Lee life of, we know that he, what was it, the 60s or 70s when he was trying to do Marvel Comics and everyone was looking down upon him in those times. Imagine if you infused those kind of struggles with race relations with also Michael B. Jordan as Stan Lee in here. I think Stan Lee would want a more fictionalized version of his roots, a more fictionalized version of someone really having to overcome stuff. That's how X-Men came to be for its metaphors for racism, and I think you can do that with this movie too.
Doesn't Stan Lee already kind of have a fictionalized biography with all the
touche.
comics that he kind of created on other people's shoulders? Like, is your movie going to deal with that? Doesn't sound like it. Just sounds like it's going to make an idol out of someone who was great and definitely brought a lot. But once you peel back the layers, you're going to find some darkness that you don't want to face. Where you've got a love story that everyone just can get behind. You can go to the early 70s when McCartney left the Beatles and decided, who I'm going to work with? The woman I love. And everyone in the world said, what are you, crazy? And he said, absolutely, in love with Linda, now McCartney, in this picture, how she turned him into a vegetarian, how on their farm, the Mull of Kintyre, they were watched, she stared out at the sheep and was like, honey,
Giving
I can't
birth
do
to
this.
Stella.
Stella McCartney.
Great blazers.
His son James McCartney, a good musician, plays with Danny Harrison too.
You know a lot about your character that you happen to get.
This may be one of my favorite people of all time.
I'm going to throw a question at each of you.
Yeah.
Clark, I want to know from you who's going to play Emerald Lagasse. And Greg, I want to know from you who's going to play Steve Ditko. And Ken, I want to know from you who's going to play John Lennon. Let's start with Clark.
Well, Emerald is going to be played also by Paul Giamatti because
Wow.
he's Paul Giamatti and he's amazing. And also, if we're looking at Oscar-worthy biopics, I mean, I feel like you can't have one without Paul Giamatti. And the problem with casting Michelle Williams, my dear friend, is that the Oscars hate her. So you're not going to win any Oscars if Michelle Williams is in your movie.
All right.
I agree
But
with
you know what?
Shots fired at Michelle Williams.
You
around-
know,
I love
you know what
Michelle
wins
Williams.
Oscars? Love. And this is the greatest love story of all time.
Can Love win an Oscar? Greg, who's going to play Steve Ditko?
Daniel Kaluuya. Yeah. You just really commit to what we're doing here with this movie. With Black Panther being the first MCU movie to be nominated, why not pull the director and the cast from that powerhouse sensation that Black Panther is, and then you tell this Stan Lee. I mean,
All right, your vision is coming into form.
There were so many struggles that Stan Lee had to go through in order to make Marvel Comics what it is today that lasted just decades. And out of all of our actors, Michael B. Jordan is the one who has demonstrated the most range and the most engaging energy out of everyone here on this panel.
Thank you,
and
sir.
that's Stan Lee right there.
What about John Lennon?
John Lennon will be played by Christian Bale. You're going to find that, wow, I cannot believe he transitioned into this, but you're thinking it right now. You're thinking it right now. John Lennon, Christian Bale with the glasses. Oh, give good for you, give peace a chance. Like, this is what's going to happen. And let me tell you something.
Oh, good for you.
This movie is going to be based around
Time!
Oh, God.
All right. Good work, everybody. Wow.
Can I just say that you guys got real things and I got Guy Fieri? Like, come on.
Guy Fieri's a fun ride to Flavortown. Dan, what happened with the facts in that round?
Oh, so many things.
Yes.
So many things happen with the facts. A couple of Guy Fieri is a Times Square legend of a sort, but unfortunately his restaurant is not. It closed down. Guy's American Kitchen and Bar closed down in January of 2018, unfortunately.
Well, you know, it's a comeback story.
I don't know. I never ate there. And then the Oscars, do they hate Michelle Williams? The answer is yes and no. Nominated 4 times, but never won.
Wow. If for those of you who enjoy a good read, there's a New York Times review of Guy Fieri's restaurant from several years back. That is just a delight. They just tear it apart. This was a lot of fun. Clark, you had me, but then just the Paul Giamatti as an actual beard and Michael Bay. Like my brain started to explode a little bit.
Because it was so awesome.
It is kind of
that's
awesome.
the Guy Fieri way.
That was funny.
Honestly.
That was really
You know what, Greg? I thought you made a good choice.
Oh,
I mean,
come on, it's Ken.
that Jordan Kugler team up is hard to beat. Oh, but Ken,
Ken killed it.
having a David Bowie's son, Duncan
Jones,
Duncan Jones, just such an apropos choice as director. That really locked it in. And then I was picturing your Bale Lennon as well.
Man, that was
Ken
great.
gets it from me. Dan Murrell.
Yeah, I mean it's some of it's the luck of the draw, but also it's what you do with the hands that you're dealt.
Sir.
I'm a big fan of Triple D, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
Yeah.
I enjoy that show. However, I think we went a little too far with the double Giamatti role. He's an actual physical beard, but also Emeril Lagasse. And Michael Bay, it all seemed like it sounded like apparently what the New York Times thought of a lot of Guy Fieri's food. A weird bad mix of things that should never go together. So it was down between Greg and Ken, and
not really.
Greg's movie would implode the internet several times over. But it's definitely an alternate take on Stan Lee. However, just from Duncan Jones to just the concept of Tilda Swinton as Paul McCartney talking about
Dude, that was
love
great.
and hearing Christian Bale go, "Oh, good!" I gotta go with Ken. I gotta go with Ken.
Yeah, Ken NAPZOK takes this one. Danielle, where is the poll?
As of right now, at 67%, it was Ken.
Oh, yeah.
2% we had Greg, 9% for Guy Fieri, but one of my favorite comments on Twitter, at Fully Holman said, Diners, Adam, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
Oh, I see what you did there, and I like it.
That is good. I should have known
Nicely
that.
done.
That was great. That was great.
All right, so
that was
we
brilliant,
are
Ken.
all locked up.
time.
We are all locked up at
Someone photoshopped Stanley, Michael B. Jordan.
Hell
wow! Oh my God! Someone photoshopped Stanley and Michael B. Jordan. It's got everyone in the studio aflutter here. Okay, so this is a great moment in sports. We are all tied up at 1-1-1. So now we are going to the tie break to see who moves on to the speed round. Here, it's going to happen thusly. It's just like basically a speed round question. I will ask the question, you will call out your answers, and then in the order we receive the answers, you'll then get 20 seconds to elaborate, and then we'll go back around in that same order for 10-second rebuttals. Then Danielle, Dan, and myself will decide who sadly will not move on to the speed round. Great fighting so far. Here we go. The best part of the Oscars, the acceptance speeches. You've won an acting Oscar. Give your acceptance speech. The worst speech is eliminated. So that is the tiebreak question.
Wait, what?
As far as the order here, we will go in the order you scored points first. So it will be Clark, Greg, and then Ken.
All right,
Okay.
In our worst acceptance speech?
You, give your acceptance
Best
speech.
acceptance.
The worst speech is eliminated.
And do we know what we're winning for?
You're all winning a best actor or actress award.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much to the Academy. This means so much to me to be the first person to portray Liza Minnelli on the big screen. She is an icon. She's a multi-talent, and I think that she represents America, the best of America. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank my agent and my manager.
Okay, time. You'll get 10 seconds more in just a moment. Greg.
Oh. Oh, okay.
Marcus just tuning up, Greg.
Wow. The Oscars have had a kind of a rough year leading up to this point, but to be up here actually means a lot. I'd like to thank my director, Martin Scorsese, for allowing me to portray Robert De Niro in this movie. I know he's very close friends with him, so I was a little nervous about taking on the job, but I think he did a great job. I'd like to thank our editor for making me look good on camera, my co-stars, everyone nominated in this category.
Time.
Wow, I wasn't prepared. This is really heavy. First, I want to thank everyone who made this possible. The lawyers, the agents, and the studio heads who negotiated my deal. It's not often that a white man can solve racism through the words he says on screen. But I felt I really had the opportunity to change something with this picture, and I'm glad I did it. My wife, Heather Grace Hancock, thank you so much for pretending that you were okay with me being gone 4 months.
You were in Green Book, apparently. Clark.
Oh, do I go again?
10 seconds more. Do whatever you want.
Song and dance, it's really important. It really matters. I think that Liza is a genius, and thank you guys so much. This means the world to me as a little theater kid from the South, so thank you.
I want to thank my girlfriend, Olivia. This was always my dream to win this Oscar, and when I got that call, I just remember saying to Marty, "You're talking to me? Huh?"
Ken NAPZOK, wrap it up.
They're playing me off. I want to thank everyone again. We can change the world using glass straws. Please support Simply Straws. Thank you. All right.
All right. Wow. Ken, you are my hero 10 years from now. Just like Matthew McConaughey. Ken, I really liked yours. Clark, I loved all of these. These were great. But, I gotta say, the one who doesn't move on, for me, sadly, it's a great fighting. But Greg, starting off with the Oscars have had a rough year. I thought just that was a weird note to start on. For me, it's
This is
Ken
an interesting debate we're having.
and Clark. This is one of the weirdest speed round questions ever. For me, it's Ken and Clark moving on. Danielle.
This is, I am delighted. All of these speeches were great.
So great.
I have to, weirdly, no, I'm changing my mind. All of these were fantastic. as funny and humorous as Ken's was, and it really was, it made me super duper laugh. I feel like his is the speech that at the end everyone would be like, what was he talking about? So unfortunately, I have to say that it's going to be Greg and Clark move on.
Okay, so
Clark.
that's one for Ken not moving on, one for Greg not moving on. Dan Murrell.
Oh, so it comes to me as convoluted as it could possibly be.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I will say that the person who moves on automatically for me is Ken, because I think it combined my favorite / least favorite things about every acceptance speech imaginable all into one speech, but in a very self-aware way. So Ken, for me, moves on. And who am I gonna? Who do I leave out? Is I don't know. Clark and Greg had very similar speeches, but I got more heartfelt from Clark, and Greg's ended on the weird, awkward impression, and I feel like that's the order people be like. So I gotta say that Ken and Clark move on, and Greg doesn't move on.
Greg, fantastic fighting all day long, but
that's the weirdest movie fights I've
yes,
ever been a part of.
this is
I was co-signed.
weirdest and most glamorous. So going to the speed round with 1 point apiece. That tiebreak did not count for a point. Ken and Clark.
It's all
and it's
okay.
anybody's ball game. We are tied up 1-1 in the speed round, and here is question number 1. And again, the speed round works the same way the tiebreaker just worked. I'll ask the question. First person to answer will have 20 seconds to elaborate. Next person 20, and then 10-second rebuttals. Here we go. Oh, just talking about this guy. Christian Bale is nominated for Vice. What's the all-time best Christian Bale performance?
American Psycho.
We have American Psycho from Clark.
We will go with. Oh, damn it. We will go with. We'll go with Batman.
Which one?
Good question.
Batman Begins.
Batman
That is the right answer.
Begins. Great. I love this question. Clark, 20 seconds begin for you whenever you speak.
All right, I love American Psycho. I wrote about it in Alicia Malone's book, The Female Gaze. Pick it up now. Okay, this is a performance that is transcendent. The fact that he wasn't nominated for an Oscar is shocking. The pathos, the danger, the depth, and the awareness that Christian Bale brings to this very important portrayal of toxic masculinity is incredible.
Time. Good. Ken.
Absolutely, Huey Lewis, business cards, it's all great, it's perfect, but tell you got to fill the cow. George Clooney couldn't do it, Val Kilmer couldn't do it, I think Michael Keaton did it great, but Christian Bale set the tone for modern superheroes going forward. Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, they all needed to look at what he did and build upon that. He made the character, the mask on is...
At the end of the day, Batman is going to have Batmans before and Batmans after, but nobody else could have brought Patrick Bateman to the screen the way that Christian Bale did.
I think it is great to have fun pop culture references, and I think it's a horror movie in the business world, but Batman, it's Batman, and Bale is the standard bearer in a genre that does have a lot of people. Everyone still looks good.
Time. Woo! How about it? Let's start with Mr. Dan Murrell.
Ooh, very difficult. I think that I'm gonna go with Ken, even though my personal favorite of these two was American Psycho. I think Ken had the better argument as far as. First of all, rebutting the fact that Clark's Batman before and after argument, saying that he still is the standard bearer even given that, and also I felt that just overall, I like Ken's argument a little bit more.
Thank you, Dan. Danielle.
I gotta disagree. I hate to do this. I disagree. I thought that Batman has been Batman before and will Batman again. I thought that was a really solid hit, and while I thought he did have a great rebuttal, I didn't feel like it quite matched up to that, so I'm gonna go with Clark.
I too am going with Clark. I feel like she laid out the specificity, some specific notes and tones of the role that much more. Both good arguments, but Clark takes the lead 2-1.
By Alicia Malone's book.
Yeah, find out more in The Female Gaze.
All right, here is question numero dos. What movie character would make the worst Oscar host?
Oh, God.
What movie character would make the worst Oscar host?
Movie character.
Fozzie Bear.
Okay, worst Oscar host. What movie character?
Fozzie the Bear.
Character. Boy.
In 5, 4.
Tully from Ghostbusters.
Tully from Ghostbusters. All right. We heard Ken first. Ken, 20 seconds on the clock for Fozzie the Bear. Fozzie the Bear starts whenever you speak.
It is an impossible task to host the Oscars. We're finding that out this year with a wide open job. No one wanted it. Comics want it. They want to try. It doesn't matter how funny you are. You get on stage in front of a bunch of self-important people who are very unsure of their position and want to be kissed on the ass on front of a telecast. Fozzie the Bear would ruin it every time. Waka, waka, waka for 4 hours of uncomfortableness.
I actually think Fozzie would be a wonderful host. I kind of wanted the Muppets to host. But anyway, Tully cannot read a room. And he just talks, and he just talks, and he just talks. Bad jokes, doesn't listen, doesn't know how to read a crowd, not socially enjoyable in any way. That is just a recipe for disaster.
He's going to create...
All right.
Sorry. He's going to create some sympathy in the crowd. They're going to be, by the 4th hour, they're going to be like, you know what, let's get on his side. But Fozzie Bear's going to keep taking shots at the crowd, and they're not going to like him. Even that hat is not going to make people endeared to him.
I think you're thinking of Triumph the Insult Comic Dog, because Fozzie Bear is the most endearing, lovable, enthusiastic person or creature that you could possibly hire, whereas Tully is not. He's an accountant. Accountants shouldn't host the Oscars, as we saw with La La Land.
Time. Woo! All right, let's start with Danielle.
Man, that La La Land dig right at the end there was mwah. I gotta give it to Clarke. That was a really, really good dig, and she slid it in just in time so that Ken would not be able to counter it. That's good debating.
All right, that is one for Clarke. Dan?
Yeah, Lewis Tully doesn't know how to read a room. Prattles on, can't take a hint. Perfect. I agree. I thought there was a good counter argument that Fozzie Bear, people love him, and he's a lovable character. And given the two, I'll take the try-hard bear over the completely oblivious accountant. So yes, I also.
All right, Clarke, you take the point. It is 3-1, Clarke. That is, in our parlance, game point. All right, so game point on the line. Did you have any thoughts as far as movie characters, Greg, that popped into your head?
Topher Grace from BlacKkKlansman.
Oh yeah, David Duke.
David Duke would be a
pretty solid, reprehensible.
I don't know how anyone would argue with that.
Reprehensible choice. Okay, it's 3-1 Clarke. This takes it. Ken, you need it to keep her going. Question number 3 of the speed round. Out of these supporting actors from Vice, and I just want to clarify, it's the question, who is better, in the film or just overall? Overall. Out of these supporting actors from Vice, who is better overall? Sam Rockwell or Steve Carell?
Sam Rockwell.
Steve Carell.
Okay. We heard Rockwell from Clarke first. Ken on deck with Carell.
The fact that Sam Rockwell just won an Oscar and for what he won it for is beyond me. The guy is a chameleon. Not only can he play a leading man, not only can he play a guy that you hate, he disappears when you apply makeup and accents. Sam Rockwell, I'm like in awe of him in every performance, specifically 7 Psychopaths. If you haven't seen that, you should.
I love what Sam Rockwell did as a kind of down-hard, kind of dumb leader in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the first time I saw him do that character, as opposed to when he played in Vice, where we got Steve Carell, a sketch comic who rose above that, and it gave heart to a character that was one-dimensional, 40-year-old virgin. Then from there, he just explodes to now he is an A-list actor.
I love Steve Carell, I really do, but even with his Oscar films like Foxcatcher, he never quite elevates to the level that I think someone like Sam Rockwell does, who is, once again, a chameleon and disappears into his roles.
Christian Bale disappears in his role. Sam Rockwell is great, but even the one with the cop one with Francis McDormand, like that was, again, going back to even the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I've seen it before. He's great.
Woo! Man, that was a real toughie, you guys. I feel like I just heard a little bit more, and just that Foxcatcher dig on Steve Carell I thought was real solid. I got to go Clark on this one. Dan.
Ken was onto something, and I liked what Ken was onto. I liked the path he was going down, but he didn't go all the way down it. I felt like his counter was a little wasted. I loved what Ken was starting, but he didn't close the deal for me, and I got to go Clark as well.
Clark Wolfe, you take movie fights.
Oh boy. Yay.
Wow,
Great,
what a great fight all
Great fight,
around.
great.
I mean, Ken, great comeback and
I love
nicely
both those
done,
guys.
but Clark, you really brought it today. Please, go ahead and tell us where we can find you and plug some stuff. Give us an Oscar prediction if you want. I don't know, no pressure.
Okay. Well, I would say if you enjoyed us talking about movies, especially our older movies like The Godfather or Cabaret or The Apartment or any of the things we talked about.
That round was delightful,
It
by
was
the way.
so fun. Please listen to my podcast. It's called Sending the Wolf, SENDING, where we talk about all of the AFI movies. The guest picks a movie and then we talk about it. So it's any list. It can be comedies, it can be dramas, it can be score, it can be any of that. So you can find that on all the podcast servers, but clarkwolf.com. It's there too. And thank you guys so much for having me. As far as predictions go, I predict I know nothing. I'm so out of the loop this year, you guys. It is like not even funny. So I predict there will be pretty people there.
Oh, yes, that's always for sure. The most glamorous night in Hollywood. Clark, that was awesome. And I highly recommend you go follow Clark's podcast and listen, because this was, if it's anything like this, and just hearing that much more about classics and unpacking some of that stuff, great job. Ken NAPZOK, always awesome to have you. You make us laugh, you make us think, you make us cry. All the feels.
Especially the cry. Thanks for having me back, everyone here. Billy Business, Joe Starr, the whole team here. Follow me at Ken NAPZOK. You know, Star Wars was Force Center, Claire Jedi Council, Movie Trivia Schmodown, Casperly Talk with Lon Harris, Andres Cabrera, Rachel Cushing, Michelle Boyd. A lot of those names coming in to talk Game of Thrones. I got something to big announce soon. I can't wait to hopefully come back and tell you all about it.
Yes.
And then, hey, you like comedy? March 14th, Seattle, MarkEllisLive.com. Me and Josh McCougar from the Afternoons with Josh and Ken will be opening up for Mark Ellis on stage.
Those three guys on one stage, that's a recipe for a good time. Ken NAPZOK, always great to have you, brother.
Thank you, sir.
Greg Alba, thank you for coming in and favoring us with thoughts, opinions, etc. Please, always great to have you. Tell us where we can find you.
You can find me at youtube.com/TheRealRejects. A lot of trailer breakdowns, movie reviews weekly, sketches every once in a while. It's fun being up here, man. I mean, the last time I was here was a big anxiety attack leading up to it. And then yesterday I was very sick, so I spent about like $50 at Whole Foods to make sure I can be healthy enough to show up today wearing gloves so I don't get anyone germs.
That's a pro.
But I love being here. This is the weirdest movie fights I've ever been a part of, but it's nice to have something that was just fun and not so serious in the last half. So,
it was a super good time, and thanks for bringing back the bathroom key.
Of course. That's one reason I was invited back.
Does that mean I get to take it now?
Yes,
men's key?
you were the you take possession of it. Thank you to our wonderful Dan Squared, the Dans and the Dan Cam, Dan Murrell. Any thoughts or predictions this weekend?
I don't know what it's gonna be. I did JTE's podcast.
Yeah.
We talked about the Oscars, and he was like, "Are you looking forward to the Oscars this year?" And I said, "It's a little bit different than usual. For me, watching the Oscars this year is like, it's the kind of excitement when they tell you that like they're gonna do like a bridge implosion and you show up to watch. It's not like going to a fireworks show like usual. It's
I like it when they blow up those old domed stadiums.
Right, it's that kind of excitement where something could go disastrously wrong, but I still feel obligated to go and see what happens.
Totally.
So we'll see. I have no predictions because everything is insane, and I have no confidence that they'll even be able to give out one award without
It's such
something
a
weird
huge
happening.
X factor having no host. It's like, what? How do you do that?
It's just super weird.
Dan, thanks again for holding it down and being our rock over there. Danielle Radford.
Hello. I just have to say, Greg, chat is obsessed with your gloves. They are obsessed with them. They have been tweeting, or they have been doing. I keep looking over, and I think Greg is like, "Why doesn't y'all keep staring at me?" Because like everyone keeps talking about these gloves. As per usual, yes, find me here on Thursdays. Listen to my wrestling podcast, Tights and Fights. Find me on Twitter, Danielle Radford, and on Instagram at Danielle_Radford. Okay, bye.
Thank you, Danielle, for being the voice of the people. And I want to thank the people, everybody. Thank you so much for watching Movie Fights. Thank you again to all of our fighters. Thank you to Billy Biz. Thank you to JTE. Thank you to Al Nation. Hoot Hoot. Find me at Hal Rudnick at Twitter and Instagram. And, there's great stuff on SJ News and Screen Junkies all the time. Monday morning, I will plug, we are doing our little Oscars response video, the Grouchies, handing out the Grouchy Awards, like Oscar the Grouch. Yep, that was the name, and we stuck with it. Check out the Grouchies Monday morning when we watch the Oscars and then kind of make fun of them. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.